Aquarius, welcome to your Halloween video. Your character is the dude from The Big Lebowski. And before we get into your November 2024 astrology notes, of which there are copious amount of notes here, before we get into it, I just want to talk a little bit about this character and why I chose him for you. So, disclaimer going in, the dude is probably in cinematic history top 5, one of my favorite characters. There is something so genuinely pure and yet modern about him. I think the cowboy says it best when he tells him, I really like your style, but I wish you wouldn't curse so much. And the dude looks at him and says, what the fuck are you talking about, man? It's so if you don't know, excuse me, a little bit of trivia that I think you'll really enjoy as an Aquarius. So The Big Lebowski, like all works of art, whether it's blatant or not, whether it's overt or not, is playing with some mythic themes. Okay, so Lebowski can be broken down in terms of religion. The cowboy that you see, or that you hear more appropriately at the beginning, is what we would consider like the all-encompassing one, the God, the universe, Allah, whatever name you call it, by that like supreme being. And then you have this cast of characters. So let's start with the dude. The dude, in relation to this particular metaphor, is the Buddha. Buddha is friends with Walter and Donnie. So the dude is friends with Walter and Donnie. Walter is Zionism and Donnie is Christianity. There's also a band of German nihilists. There's also a satanic figure played by a character named Jackie Treehorn, who's a pornographer. And there is the Madonna whore complex in terms of defining women present as well. Maud being the Madonna and Bunny being the whore. There's also, controversially, there's also Catholicism represented as a bowler named Jesus, who's a pedophile. Hey, listen, if you're offended, I'm right there with you. Like, they talk about Muslims terribly in that movie. The few times that Muslims are referred to in that movie were just like referred to as like idiots. But that overall concept is there. There might be a few. Oh, well, there's also the Big Lebowski, the actual Big Lebowski that everyone's looking for, the rich Lebowski, and he is representative of just blatant, corporate capitalism and how impotent it really is. There's a few more cameos here and there, and as they occur to me, I will fill in the blanks. But overall, what you're watching is God kind of assessing the different belief systems that are on the planet at the moment and having personal interactions with them or observing them from a personal vantage point and finding that the dude's Buddhistic way of being, really pleases him. He's very intrigued and amused by the way that dude goes through his life. And through watching his life and the way he reacts or responds to varied situations, we are painted a picture of somebody who unwillingly can navigate the most bizarre of circumstances because he remains consistently in the flow. One time that he steps out of the flow and starts to act like the rest of us, his friend Walter actually says to him, "You're being very undued right now." Okay, so this modern day take on the Buddha, why is it so apt for Aquarians? The dude understands something that very few people in society get, and you have that, that representation over and over again in the film. Whenever someone responds or reacts to the dude, you see the world responding to someone who wants to first and foremost be kind, but also someone who is quite logical and easy about it, easy about how smart they are, very witty, but so relaxed about it that you can't sense any effort. The thing about people who are witty is that they're exhausting because they're putting in so much effort and they're putting on such a show to seduce you, basically. The dude, there's no seduction with the dude. Very asexual in his wit, his humor. It has nothing to do with anything lascivious or crude. It's quite evolved, actually. But again, you don't expect such a highly evolved person to be walking around in board shorts and a tattered sweatshirt, doing a J. But every time he refers to himself outside of the context in which you're seeing him, or whenever you see him in the film outside of the context of him being the main character and, being in some kind of trouble, you have these little hints into his life that are so Aquarian. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. One, when he's at the Big Lebowski's place and he's, looking through all his frames and all his pictures, and he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah." He's like helping kids go to college. Maybe he should adopt me. And Philip Seymour Hoffman's like, "Oh, you never went to college?" He's like, No, I went to school." And it's pretty obvious throughout the film that he's very smart. He's learned even, not just smart, not just like street smart. He's learned. He knows quite a lot. But he says, "Yeah, I spent most of my time occupying various administration buildings, smoked a lot of tie sticks." So you spent your college years protesting the injustice of the war that your generation was subjected to. Okay. All right. And the rest of the time you were doing consciousness enhancing, expanding drugs. Great. Then you have another moment where he's relaxing in the tub. It's one of the rare moments you see him in just a state of equilibrium and no one's trying to imbalance him. And what's he doing? He's listening to whale sounds in the tub, smoking a joint. Now, I don't know how many people would know this or why I even know it. I'm going to blame TikTok for this. But there exists within your face, within your face, excuse me, over your sinuses, a series of connections that buzz when you hum or ohm in the water. It makes your head buzz in a way that will attract whales, dolphins, anything that can communicate with you through that same humming or that same vibration. And actually, there's a lot of research to suggest that doing this sort of humming or oming submerged in water or half submerged in water will create a vibratory response within this like sphenoid area of your face, this like sinus area of your face, that can actually enhance your telepathy. And you can, and there are, I mean, okay, let me stop there and let me just say this. This is such an Aquarius video. Let me say this. Communicating with a dolphin, attempting to communicate with a dolphin in the United States of America is a felony. Okay, I'm going to leave that there. Now, if that doesn't give you a round enough picture of why I chose, there's something so subversive about you, Aquarius. It's so funny because you can have a pretty, not plain, you're never plain, but you can have a pretty conservative at times exterior. Okay, you like your interesting colors and that's more Aquarius sun than rising, but you know, yeah, okay, you like the glittery, you like the holographic, but at your core, you're pretty normal. Like this whole thing of like Aquarians are aliens and they're just so weird. I don't know if that's necessarily what it is. I don't think you're weird. I don't think you're an alien. I think that you're just really, really, really smart. And if you've never really been around really smart people or you're not a really smart person yourself, that may feel almost otherworldly. But you do not present, not to me at least, you do not present like some strange being that needs to be understood. You present as pretty fucking normal, but just with this sort of super normal, super enhanced intelligence. And then the thing that perhaps takes it over the edge and people are like, okay, that person is really far out there, is that along with this intelligence, this hyper intelligence, you have an adventurous spirit. So you will get involved in things, whether it's relationships or trips or friend groups or, various risk-taking activities that I'm sure that you found that no one even knows exist. And you will engage in them because it's almost as if your intelligence dumbs you down. Okay, hear me out. Excuse me. I'm still recovering. Excuse me for that. For example, when I went skydiving on my 27th birthday, my father called my phone like 500 times. My dad won't come to the phone when his family calls. Like my dad's relationship with the phone is crazy. He will wave the phone, like he'll wave in the air if my mom picks up the phone and just start waving as in don't even let them speak to me. I don't want to talk to anybody. He doesn't like to speak to people. He's what you would call not a phone person. He called me 500 times almost, just about. Like it was in the high 400 to 500s when he found out that I was going skydiving and I was in New Jersey. And he kept calling the whole time until I was back on the ground. And what he told me was, you think you're smart, but the average person who's just a dolt and a dummy, someone who's like deaf, mute, dumb, blind, like everything, like someone who just like has no capacity whatsoever is smarter than you because they would know not to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. But you think that because you're smart, you can justify this in some sort of philosophical way when really what you did was you risked your life on your fucking birthday. You know, it's like in the Big Lebowski, it says, you're killing your mother with this, Larry. You see what happens. It's, that's what he was saying to me. Like, you didn't even think, you explained it away as this like existential, moment for you. And you didn't think for a second that the woman who gave birth to you on that day, and you know, my mom had a C-section, so we got it, 3 C-sections, so we got to hear about it, which is fine. Props. You know, you didn't even think for a second that the woman who cut through 7 layers of tissue, muscle, everything to get you out, how she would feel if that parachute hadn't opened. Now, did it matter to him that I was actually strapped to like a guy who was like 6'6" and had done like 200 jumps that week? No, he doesn't care. That's not the point. The point is that the dumbest of the dumb would know better than to get into a plane and jump out of it, especially on their birthday. You know, so his resounding conclusion was that I was selfish, self-involved, and perhaps a bit too smart for my own good, because it made me the type of adventurous that could be fatal, right? When your mind is working against you. So, in that same way, the fact that you are so smart that it makes you adventurous can actually put you in a category that's below someone who you would think is an idiot. Like, I'm only talking to you this way because I know that you think this way. You know, I wouldn't say this, just so you know, I wouldn't say this to a Leo. If in a Leo video I was going on about how they're really smart and other people are morons, they would be offended for those other people. And they'd be like, why are you talking about those people that way? That's not nice. Like, because that's how they are. You guys are like this. It's fine. It's okay. But this is how you guys are. And so this is how we talk, because this is what gets through to you. So if that intelligence, that prowess, that adventurous spirit, it means something to you, if it means a lot to you, if that is your identity, then understand that sometimes you need to check yourself when you start oversimplifying things by intellectualizing them. The oversimplification of me jumping out of that plane was like, it's my birthday, getting close to death is an affirmation of life. Like smoking a cigarette at a funeral or something stupid like that. And in reality, the simple truth of it was I could have killed myself because I was bored. And because 27 is my number, it's my birthday number, I wanted to do something amazing for my, you know, royal birthday. Like, that's it. That's what really was happening. So, just if you can, prior to the action, check yourself, you know, instead of like looking at it in hindsight and being like, yeah, that would be a good place to start in November and carry through until even after your season. Now, let's get into the astrology. Back. Let's go. So, in talking about your astrology, let's start with the fact that on the 2nd of November, Mercury will move into Sagittarius, which, if you're an Aquarius rising, that's your 11th house. On the 25th, Mercury, still in Sag, excuse me, will go retrograde. Now, while Mercury is in Sag, think about that axis. On the other side of that axis is Gemini, where you have Jupiter in retrograde. Mercury will oppose Jupiter. Okay? During this time, what you're having happen, blanket everyone, not just you, but it applies to you more so than others, simply because you're very quick. Air sign things. When Mercury in Sagittarius opposes Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, your tongue is sharp. Especially those of you who are married or in long-term marriage-like situations, your spouse is on the receiving end of words that can be so sharp that the slip up It's you meant to nick them, but you didn't realize that your sword has been replaced with a samurai sword, right? All of a sudden you have like a Hattori Hanzo sword. And it can be too big of a slip up for some people to, depending on what sign they are. You know, if you fuck around and do this to a Scorpio, they're not going to forgive you. It's that type of thing. You can say something really nasty between the 2nd and the 25th, especially. It can get ugly, and it happens by accident. So it's not in the middle of a heated argument. It's not in a situation where the other person is anticipating that you will, be cutting. It seems like a very casual moment, and then you thinking that you're not thinking really, say something that's such a bad slip up that it causes extreme reactions in other people, very intense reactions. So in those moments where either you've already slipped up and are having these intense reactions thrown at you, or before you let loose and say anything, you're being very careful. One of the things that you can refer back to is this dude character. Do you remember when Lebowski is like telling him, "Oh, my wife's been kidnapped, and I don't know what I'm going to do," and and the dude is like, "Man, that's a bummer." He's like, "What?" He's like, "It's a bummer, man. Like, can I do a J? Do you mind if I do a J?" Like, what he's embodying there is the idea that somebody else's feelings, their reactions, what they want from you does not define your state of mind. Only you. And he is quite guarded about his state of mind. It's only when things around him reach a fever pitch that it starts to impinge on him a little bit. Other than that, he's able to keep his like copacetic mindset most of the time, right? So refer back to that balance, because it's easy to ingest casual conversation, a talk with friends, and your spouse overhears. It doesn't have to be directly at them, but it is directed at them. It's about them, even if it's not directed at them, excuse me. So you really, for the sake of not hurting feelings as well, you really just want to watch your tongue. And if you're not in a serious committed relationship, probably not the best time to be trying to get into one by having long conversations. Maybe be a little mysterioso this month. Now, this sharpness can also lead to conflict, not just with romantic partners, but also with your friends. So there's a lot that people can throw up that to you feels like they've been harboring it for a good minute, which is confusing to you, right? So if you are accused of neglect, right? Or if your family accuses you of preferring your friends, if your friends accuse you of preferring someone you just met, whatever it is, people seem to be vying for some sort of victim role in your life where they are just waiting for you to say something or do something. And even if you don't, they're coming at you with these accusations mid-month of not having done right by them. But why? Could be two things. Could be that you're unconsciously sabotaging your relationship. You don't really want it anymore. Or the people in your life that know that they're asking for more than they should have are going about getting it by nefarious means. In this case, basically gaslighting you. And the thing about anyone who goes on ad nauseum about being neglected or ignored, one of the things that you have to remember about that person is that they're completely self-obsessed and self-absorbed. Part of the reason that they're being neglected is because the other person in that scenario, in that relationship, has been neglected for quite a long time, because this person is only interested in their own experience and how they feel. And so if you emotionally shut someone out long enough, yes, they will neglect you. Okay. Now, the question is, after I've said all that, turn the next page. The question is, does your attitude need to change, or what do you need to do so you can be honest with yourself? What do you Pluto's moving into your sign on the 19th. It's a big fucking deal. If you don't adopt this dude-like behavior now, things could get complicated, heavy, unnecessarily upsetting. You have choices here. You have a decision to make. Do you want your friends and family around? Do you want a romantic partner? And if you do, if the answer is yes, then what needs to change? Is it your attitude, or do you need to be honest with yourself about sabotaging things? Is it what you really want? Along with Pluto moving into your sign, Mars moves into Leo on the 4th, I believe. And then Pluto moves into your sign on the 19th. Mars-Pluto oppositions. Okay, get used to this. Pluto comes in and puts a filter over your eyes. Everything that you see for the next 20 years or so will be colored by whatever filter Pluto has decided to put over your corneas. Okay? Everything changes. Everything changes. After the 19th, Pluto is there, and you will not be the same. Now, because it's Pluto, the transformations are unexpected. I mean, it's just the external factors are so random, but there is a sense of continuity throughout the whole thing where you know that everything is happening exactly the way that it should. But you have to be careful. The world around you doesn't really get what's new, what's going on with you, and it can actually hurt your relational chances. Because if the person you like or that likes you gets around people who are in the business of putting you down, and you're supposed to be quirky and kooky and, sums all up to they're cute, but don't pay any attention to them, or like don't expect too much from this. All starts to fall apart. Now, mid-November onward for you, because Pluto's going to be around for a long time. It's about radical transformation, and I don't think it slows down unless you want to slow down. If that looks like you saving your relationship by being a whole new person and resetting completely, then that's fine. If that means that you become a monk for a little while and then come back down off the mountain and re-engage with life, that's fine. If that means you take a break off from everything and invest yourself into a business, a company, etc., that's fine. That radical transformation will find you as long as you're doing something that you genuinely know that you should be doing. But if you find yourself standing at the doorway to something you've had before, understand that your power lies in resetting completely. In every way, it's the best way. And when you reset, the one thing I want you to keep in mind is that it seems like most people, they're never really happy. It's time for you to lighten all the way up. You've been adult for a long time. All right, let's keep going. Career and money. So on the 4th, like I said, Mars moves into Leo. On the 11th, while Pluto is in transit into Aquarius, it will oppose Mars, and you will deal with people with a completely no-nonsense attitude. You are done. You have things to say in a professional but biting, cutting manner, and that's all there is to it. A few coughing fits later, I am back, baby. Let's continue. I think my fatigue got to me at the end of the last segment that I recorded. So let's just go over this again. Now, when Mars moves into Leo on the 4th and Pluto moves into Aquarius on the 19th, before it moves, while it's transiting, that Mars-Pluto opposition, this has to do with career and money now. You have to deal with people very seriously. It doesn't matter who it is that is your tithe to authority. It doesn't matter if it's a boss, a parent, a friend that's overbearing, a sibling that won't let you breathe. It doesn't matter. But your ties with that person who has, for some reason or other, an understood role in your life, or just someone who has taken advantage, someone who has authority over your life will get checked by you. And if this is someone that's been around for a while, then it's speaking to an older issue, and that issue has a tendency to come back around because it still wants to be resolved. And you can feel the pressure of that confrontation, that competition, that conversation coming. And if you're at all skittish about confrontation, this can feel like a lot of uncomfortable pressure. This can feel like anxiety, right? So what's the best thing to do? First I'm going to tell you what you're going to feel like doing. What you're going to think is the best option, more appropriately, not feel, but think, is that you have to fight for your spot in this hierarchy somehow. You have to get above this person. When what you really need to do is not get sucked into that game at all, and that's really the only strategy you need. The only strategy you need is to persevere while this really uncomfortable transition of authority is going on between Capricorn and Aquarius. You need to step away from it. Even though everything in you is going to be like, no, fight for your spot. You earned it. But you're fighting for your spot in a world that is crumbling and over. You don't want to go back into that building while the roof is falling down just because you want to make it a point that you used to own this place. It doesn't matter. We're transitioning into a worldview where authority will have a completely different meaning. So for you to want to argue over what's ostensibly an archaic version of power and authority that can no longer apply, you specifically doing that is super ironic, right? And the thing that can drive it, the thing that can overpower your intelligence, because you understand this, you must. What can override that is greed. Greed will instill doubt in you. Doubt is the devil. Once greed gets into your ego and starts making you feel like you're not good enough without that hierarchical stamp of approval, or that one-upping, and or that, or that competition that you win, that very secretive, highly competitive nature that you have, you don't want to feed into that. You don't want to give that any air because it's extremely unpleasant. And it's driven by this sort of, I'll say greed. What I mean is avarice. There's a strange abstraction of spirit that can happen with Aquarius where you can become sort of robotic in the mind when it comes to getting what you want or proving somebody wrong, or you want to feel better about something. You feel like somebody deserves your wrath. You feel like revenge is necessary. It all gets wrapped up into one fixed package that is very, how do we say it? It's hard to, it's not relatable. It's not relatable. You lose us. And I think you lose a part of yourself when you become motivated by this chip on your shoulder. So how do you keep from having that chip on your shoulder be exploited? Because the chip on your shoulder in and of itself is not a big deal. I'm talking to a guy right now who's a chef, and he has a huge chip on his shoulder. But it's sexy, it's attractive, it's beautiful, because he's not like using it as a way to hurt anybody. He's just motivated in his own life. Do you know what I mean? Like it just makes him more driven. So as long as you don't let anyone manipulate that chip on your shoulder, it's wonderful. It can be all the fuel you'll ever need because you remember where you came from and you know you're never going back. But when you allow other people access to that vulnerability because you wear it too openly, it's too much of an invitation for the wrong type of person, then people can easily pull you into these power grabs where ultimately they end up taking your power, draining you, and you end up looking like the bad guy anyway, because they may not be smarter than you, but they know not to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. So some battles you're too smart to fight. You're not crude enough to get in the muck where you need to be able to win. You're too good for it. And that's not a weakness, but you may perceive it as one. And instead of seeing perseverance as the goal and the victory, you may feel that you need to prove the point by going into that battle, not realizing that just entering that space with someone you've already lost. They've beaten you. You may find this, Aquarius, like maybe you don't realize this, but think about it just as we're talking about it now. How many times have you thought, oh, I'm so good at winning an argument, or no one should argue with me, or I'm smarter, or if this turns into an argument, I'm going to win, or I'm definitely going to get my point across. You probably think that a lot. But every Aquarius I've ever met can get tripped up with their words so easily. Like if you actually come across somebody who's not playing fair, you're a sitting duck. If you actually come across somebody ruthless who isn't going to, follow the rules of war, you don't have much defense against it. And I think that's exactly coming back to the point. Excuse me. I think that's exactly why, as this very important, not to sound trite, but once in a lifetime transit happens through your sign, I think it's very important that you realize that those battles have to be left in the past and they never have to be fought again. More importantly, they should not ever be fought again. Because as long as you keep entertaining it, it's part of you, it's you. You know, anyone who behaves in a way and then later says, well, that's not who I am. Okay, well, no, actually, that is who you are. And self-denial is also part of who you are. Because it should be plain as day to anyone that the way you behave is who you are. Right? So if you look at it in those terms, Pluto moving into Aquarius opens up, like I said, it puts a whole new hue on the world that you see. You can live in a state of dudedom. Your dudeness, your royal dudeness, if you're not into the whole brevity thing. Do you remember when he's having that conversation with the Big Lebowski? And the Big Lebowski says, your generation lost. I would suggest you do what your parents did and get a job, sir. The bums will always lose. The bums will always lose. What does he do? He just, oh, fuck it. Oh, yeah, fuck it. That's your generation's answer to everything. Fuck it. You see how he doesn't engage with the hierarchy of power? With the epitome of useless corporate greed? He's not engaging. He's not going to have this fight. He's going to take the rug anyway, though. How did your conversation with Mr. Lebowski go? Great. He said I could take any rug in the house. I'm still taking, you know, it's very Denzel. I'm leaving here with something. I'm still taking I'm still gonna get done what I need to get done. But if you think I'm gonna sit here and go round for round with you, you know, about how we're not bums just because we don't want to live in your power structure, well, that's useless. Fuck it. Why do that? What's the point? Be that. Go watch that movie. Be that. Be him in that scene. Because he has a point. Wu was trying to pee on the other guy's rug. But if you look at it from a corporatist point of view, he said, well, every time a rug is micturated upon in this fair city, I'm somehow involved. He's also got a point. It is the ultimate clash between Capricorn and Aquarius as power is handed from one to the other. Fuck it. Is power. And it's a power that you specifically can benefit from in the most magical ways. An Aquarius that stops pandering to the world, you know, you have one foot out the door and you don't give a fuck what anyone thinks, and on the other foot's dancing for its life, trying to get everybody to like them. Just go outside. Stop trying to get people to understand you, like you, respect you, you know, do as you say, listen to you, you know, just stop. It's not working. It doesn't work. It makes you miserable. It makes other people miserable. Go do your own thing. The more you do your own thing, the more the people in your life who right now just can't seem to treat you right will come to their senses. Because as soon as people realize that you are done people pleasing or trying to fit in, you're free. They will let you do whatever you want and they'll stop judging you. That's why they don't judge Geminis. Haven't you ever thought about that? The only reason you get judged is because they can smell it on you like they're like dogs. They can smell it on you. That you have that tinge of wanting their approval. You know, you're the quintessential misfit who just desperately wants to fit in but can't. It could easily be said that Geminis aren't even as much of a misfit, but they just refuse to give a fuck about fitting in. And I think the joy factor between the two signs tells you everything you need to know. You know, not taking into account Libras as the other air sign, is just miserable. because they need their lifeblood is other people's approval. You got one foot in, one foot out. But if you decide to come out here into the open air, trust me, you'll never go back. And with Pluto entering Aquarius, why would you? Everything is getting blown up behind you. There's nothing to go back to. Excuse me, I'm going to drink something. Sorry about that. Now, let's talk a little bit about mental health. I've a lot more notes, dog. This is going to go on for a while still. All right. So Jupiter's retrograde in Gemini, Mercury's retrograde in Sag, and then there's this opposition. And basically one of the things that becomes highlighted here is you have some choices to make between your material needs and wants versus these sort of lofty goals that you have for yourself for the future. You may change priorities here. You may think, short term, I just need my material needs met right now. We'll go back to that goal. Or you may think, let's tighten our belt and let's go after the gold and forget about the here and now. And the people that suffer are the people around you, regardless of what you choose. Group projects of any kind, group businesses, even marriages where people work together, it can get a little bit tricky right now. Because it's really about this Mercury, Jupiter thing. Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius that it's opposing. Mercury is the ruler of Gemini that it's opposing. So right now for you, this is a lot about how your desires come up against people's expectations of you. Again, what we were just talking about. And especially people who support you in ways where they know that you need them, whether they're supporting you financially, emotionally, it doesn't really matter, but they know that you need them. And it can hurt really bad to feel it coming off of them that they're they're trying to get you to make a choice between your desires and their expectations. And the unsaid part there is like, I support you, so you should definitely be trying to live up to me and what I want for you instead of what you want. And that can really hurt your feelings right now. It's happened before. It's happened many times, but it hurts so much different as you get older and as you start to really like yourself and you start to prize certain people because, they're special and they're important to you and they've stood the test of time and they're trusted. And when you hear someone that's in that category of your life say something that's tantamount to, this is between, you're going to have to choose between your desires and what I expect of you, it can be earth-shattering. So just keep in mind that when you have these moments, it's because of what's happening with this Mercury-Jupiter opposition. One of the good things you can do with Mercury retrograde is if you're running a business of any kind, you can revise your economic strategy. There's something you're missing in terms of how to market your business or get more eyes on your business that in November comes through succinctly, easily. You just have to wait for it. It will occur to you and it will be beautiful, inshallah. So there's that. Now let's do a little mental health and physical well-being. So you have to start thinking differently now. In this little period of transition, okay, you can have these existential, moments where you're like, these conflicts where you're like, okay, is it what I want? Is it what they want? Is it what the world wants from me? Is it what I owe the world? But when we're looking past November 19th, we're looking at Pluto getting comfortable in your sign. Your vision has to become very long-term because all your transformations now get put on a very long timeline and things get long, the game gets long, but it also gets deep. So things go deep and you can't be impatient because it's going to be a 20-year process. So there is a way that you have to start thinking about life that's drastically different from the way you've lived it up until now. You may have lived very much as an Aquarius in the now. Now, because everything has this long-term vision to it. Obstacles, if you're healthy about it, obstacles can be classified as new paths instead. You can redefine what that word means. You can redefine what that feeling is. You can redefine what those events are categorically called. They're no longer something standing in your path. They're a diversion of your path so as to correct you, like those cars that have that, lane. I think it's like a lane security thing where they'll like the car will move on its own to make sure it stays in the lane. I think it's like sleep protection or dozing off protection or something. As long as you are seeing the long game and you're thinking of things 20 years out, any little obstacle you come across can either irritate you because you're already impatient, you're already irritated by the idea that it's going to take so fucking long, or you realize that on a long enough timeline, these little obstacles mean absolutely nothing. And actually, when you look back, you will see that it was obviously things that were done to self-correct your path. Okay. Now, so what that means is don't be afraid of those obstacles, and don't be afraid of the new doors that they so obviously create that maybe aren't your strong suit, but it's like you're dying to walk through the door. Just do it. Just do it. Just take the risk. You're smart enough. You'll be okay. Now, one of the other things that happens in terms of physical wellness is that Pluto, it sets you free from your bad habits. I just saw something about how Ozempic is helping people not gamble. It keeps you from gambling. So obviously Ozempic is exerting some sort of control over, will, right? So because Pluto frees you of your bad habits, we're just going to go ahead and assume that it's also making you pretty strong-willed, which you already are. And you would think this is like great news, but actually it's quite terrible for the people around you. And it's because it's really the only way to manipulate you. People take advantage of and rely on your bad habits as a form of security, of their security. Okay? Because your bad habits can be such that they can create that fixed stagnation, and they know you're not going anywhere as long as you're going to keep doing this stupid shit. And that makes them feel great. Probably makes them treat you like shit though. Okay? So what you want to do is you want to break all this up. You want to change those habits. You want to bring some harmony in. You want to start focusing on long-term goals. And I think when you start doing that, you're going to realize that the present company you're keeping is lame. They're not going to make it on the long haul with you. And for some of you, that starts to become obvious, like as of November 20th, you're like, oh my God, I'm not going to see this person. I'm not going to spend the next 20 years trying to like transform myself around this moron. Okay. Then one of the other things that you have to remember is that, while people are lamenting you getting rid of your bad habits, while you're getting healthier, you have to understand that as of the 19th, there is this like uncomfortable, frustrating push that just exists in your life. And it's unrelenting, and it just keeps pushing on you, pushing on you, pushing on you, pushing on you. And if you want, you can take that pressure and you can blame every single person you see around you for that nagging, uncomfortable impatience that you feel. Every little thing can set you off. Everything can be everybody's fault. Or you can realize that this uncomfortable, almost aggressive feeling that you have is symptomatic of the knowledge that this is a 20-year process. It's going to take a long time. And in the meantime, there's not much you can do. You know, you can keep making the right choices, but you can't really speed this up. So, are you going to make it about you and constantly evolve and change and use the next 2 decades to really hone in on what and who you are? Or are you going to spend the better part of 20 years pointing your finger at other people and accusing them and blaming them? Because it's just too hard to live with the feeling of this thing that needs to get done, but it won't get done for a long time. It's like you're up in space at the space station and those motherfuckers can't bring you down. What do you do if you're stuck up there? Do you call down to Houston and curse them out every day so they feel even less like helping you? Or do you find something to do up there? Do you look within and start to use this uncomfortability as almost a surgical tool to cut away that within you that's causing so much unrest and anxiety at the idea of something that you can't have right now, something that you can't achieve right now? What parts of yourself are malignant with what this feeling brings, with what this doubt brings in your capability, your value, and your worth? That emotional scalpel is sharp, right? So, excuse me, when we don't make it about ourselves, we will, for sure, you will upset everybody around you because nobody else is going through this but you. Sure, you know, Aquarius rising, Aquarius sun, even to a certain extent, Aquarius moon. Outside of that, no one understands what you're going through right now. They will never understand. You can choose to turn that position into something venerated, fantastical, or you can degenerate. What would the dude do? I love you. Always. Happy Halloween.
Lebowski, rant again. Just call us as soon as you get in and I'll send a limo. I hope you're not avoiding this call because of the rug, which I assure you is not a problem. We need your help and...
I received this fax this morning. As you can see, it is a ransom note.
We have money.
By men who are unable to achieve a level field play.
$1 million.
Cowards.
Unmarked, non-consecutive, 28
Weekly.
weight instructions.
Wow.
No fun stuff. Bummer.
Huh?
This is a bummer. That's a bummer.
Rat will fit in on the detail.
Mr. Lebowski is prepared to make a generous offer to you to act as courier once we get instructions for the money.
I mean,
He believes the culprits might be the very people who
The ringer cannot look empty.
Walter, what the fuck you thinking, man?
You're right, dude. I got to thinking. Why should we settle for a measly fucking 20
What the
grand?
fuck, we? You said you just wanted to come along.
My point, dude, is why should we settle for 20 grand when we can keep the entire million? Am I wrong?
Yes, you're wrong. This isn't a fucking game, man.
Oh, but it is a game. You said so yourself. She kidnapped herself.
I said I thought. Dude here.
Who is this?
Dude, the bag man. Man, where do you want us to go?
Us?
Shit. Yeah, you know, me and the driver. I'm not handling the money, driving the car, and talking on the phone all by
Shut the
myself.
fuck up!
Dude, are you fucking this up?
Who is that?
That is the driver. I told you.
Shit! What the fuck's going on?
Walter,
What the fuck is
you
going on?
hung up, man. You fucked it up. You fucked it up. Her life was in our hands, man.
Easy,
We're
dude.
screwed now. We don't get shit. They're gonna kill her. We're fucked, Walter.
No, that's the simple part, dude. We make the handoff. I grab one of them and beat it out of them.
Huh?
That's a great plan, Walter. That's fucking ingenious, if I understand it correctly. That's a Swiss fucking watch.
That's right, dude. The beauty of this is its simplicity. Once the plan gets too complex, everything can go wrong. There's one thing I learned in now.
Dude,
You're coming to a wooden bridge. When you cross the bridge, you throw the bag from the left window of the moving car. You're being watched.
fuck.
What do you say? Where's the handoff?
There is no fucking handoff, man. At the wooden bridge, we throw the money out of the car. We throw the money out of the moving car.
No, we can't do that, dude. That fucks up our plan.
Well, call them up and explain it to them, Walter. Your plan is so fucking simple and people don't fucking understand it. That's the beauty of it.
Wooden bridge, huh?